I'm going to try to record this video as fast as possible because it's now 1:30 p.m. and the sun is going down slowly. I live in Sweden and it's freaking December, so yesterday was officially the darkest day of the year, so. Hi everyone, Evelyn here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. In this video, I just wanted to share my top 5 Netflix TV shows that I think that you guys should binge if you are one of those people that likes to binge Netflix a lot. Just like watch an episode after an episode after episode, because that's the kind of personality that I am. Like once I really like a show, I have to finish it. Like I can't just stop watching it midway through. Like no matter how sad it gets, even though every time like a character that I really like dies, I'm like,
nah, I'm not watching this ever again. Like, I don't want to see anymore. Like, I don't care what happens afterward. I just can't stop watching that show anyway because, you know, you need to know how it ends. Like, that's just human nature, isn't it?
Before we jump into the video, I would like to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you do like my content and hit that notification bell down below so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. So I think before I start that all of these TV shows have certain things in common, and it is that most of them are pretty progressive in the time that they are set. So they are all kind of like inclusive of people of color. They're all very inclusive of LGBTQ community and like transgender people and just like people of different shapes and sizes. And it's like all of these women that aren't afraid to speak up about who they are and what they want. And they all have this drive, and it's not to get a man, which I feel like a lot of rom-coms and a lot of these like old TV shows where they feature women was mainly about. And I feel like one of the reasons why that has been is because those type of TV shows and movies have been written by men, but they portray a woman as the main character. But then, you know, how can really a man know what a woman wants? And even though there are like brilliant movies and brilliant books and stuff where there's a female character that has been written by a man, I believe that to get the true essence of like what a woman is, like you need to also bring out the women writers and female directors to really show a wider variety of women in media that we're not seeing in today's society. So that was my rant. Anyways, okay, so the first TV show that I'm going to talk about is Sex Education, and it's a TV show that I discovered I discovered it this year when I was in the Philippines during lockdown, because me and a friend of mine really wanted to have something to watch during that time, and I was like, why not just jump on Sex Education, because it looks kind of funny, right? So Sex Education is a British comedy drama that is set in like today's society, like modern society. It follows a bunch of teenagers who all are encountering their first sexual experiences, or they are all having their first sexual encounters. And I find that kind of funny because I feel like usually these TV shows that feature young people, they have this sort of stigma over, you know, talking about sex and talking about that kind of thing.
My body has complete control over me.
You have discovered the wonders of your own penis, my friend. It's normal.
It's not normal. Last night I looked at some cheese and I got an erection.
What type of cheese?
Like it touches upon some really deep issues like abortion or homophobia and just like self-loathing. And it's basically about these two main characters. Well, there's a lot of characters, but one of the characters, his name is Otis, and his mom is a sex therapist. And because of that, he doesn't really know how to express himself sexually because of his mom, and he's embarrassed by her. But it's basically about him. And then there's another girl called Maeve, who's this sort of like a social outcast, like the typical bad girl. She lives in a van with her brother, who is kind of like AWOL, like he comes back every now and then, and her mom's like a drug addict. So she's obviously like very different compared to Otis, but somehow they get together at school and they decide to go into business together, where Otis gives people sex advice, which, like, you know, funnily enough, is like something that he's gotten by his mom. Like he's, you know, that's why he's good at that, like giving advice to people and like helping people. So Maeve helps to find clients for him, and he basically gives all these teenagers different advice on whatever issue they're encountering. And then Maeve gets like some of the money from it, like she cashes the check from it. So yeah, it's just really hilarious because it just shows so many different kinds of people, you know, and it's not just like the typical guy being super masculine and then all the women being kind of like ashamed of themselves. Because I feel like that's a common theme throughout all of, like a lot of these like young, like teenager type of shows. So I'd give that one a watch if you want to watch something that's really progressive and like inclusive and funny and talks about sex in like a healthy way. Okay, so the second TV show that I'm going to mention is Cable Girls, and the original title for it is Las Chicas del Cable, and it's this Spanish historical drama that's set in the 1920s throughout the 1930s of Madrid, Spain. And first of all, it's such a beautiful show, like cinematically and just where it's set, it's just so beautiful. In the way that, like, you know, costume design, set design, and the makeup, and just like down to the very detail, it's such a beautiful show to watch. So basically it features this girl, or it's about this girl called Lydia, right? That's like, it's mainly about her journey, but it's about this girl Lydia, and Marga, Carlota, Angeles, and Sara. These 5 girls who all come together because they start working at this phone company. And you know, it was like back in the day where you didn't have normal phones, so you would call a line, and then the line would go through to the phone company, and they would pick up and they would ask you where do you want to call to, you know, so they would kind of be like the mediator, like in between. And that was like a common job for women to have back then in Spain. So Lydia is this kind of troubled young woman in her 20s something who is basically like escaping these really horrible and corrupt police officers who they unfairly blame her for having killed a person while she actually hasn't. Well, it was actually, I think, a police officer that shot her friend, and that's what happens in the very beginning of this. And so in order for her to get rid of these bad guys, she has to give them a certain amount of money, but because she is kind of like working class and she has no money, she decides to join this phone company to steal money from the company eventually. So she actually, her real name is Alba, but she goes by the name Lydia, and she pretends that she was one of the people that got this job.
Lidia Aguilar.
Alba.
Lo lamento, pero se ha equivocado de persona, ¿no?
10 años no son suficientes para olvidarte.
No soy la chica que conociste.
So she just comes in and she meets all these women, and it's just a really amazing show, and like it gives me chills just talking about it now, and like it makes my hairs like rise on my arm, because it's just so many like tangles and twists in this show, and like she meets like her first love, and it's like triangle drama between her and like these 2 guys. What I mostly like about this show is that it shows like these strong women during a very pivotal time in the world, a very pivotal time of Europe, you know, where the suffragette movement started to happen, and women were like arising, you know, from having been in such a like man's world, which it still is, but like back then especially, you know, women were getting like abused, women couldn't divorce a guy even though he hit her, and like women couldn't even vote back then. So it's about like how all these strong, really strong character women have this one goal, and it's to, they want women to have the rights that they never got, you know, and just how it was treated as like such a like sickness to be like homosexual or to be transgender. And yeah, just like the way that the world viewed women back then is really interesting, to just make like a parallel from now to then. So that is a really great show if you are like a feminist like me, and if you're someone who really like likes seeing these like uplifting, inspiring women, like strong women in TV shows, because I really love that and I find it really inspiring to see. So the third TV show is also a historical drama. I think I have a thing for historical dramas, but it's called Self-Made, inspired by the life of C.J. Walker. And it's set in the 1910s to the 1920s of the US. And this show is actually based on a biography called On Her Own by Lelia Bundles. So in this show, it touches on so many issues as well, but it's basically about this woman who works as a washerwoman. She's a black woman, and this is like in the post-slavery time of the US. So it was very, very segregated, like women of color were really struggling, like people of color were really struggling then, still are, but a lot then. And it's about how this washerwoman, like she was just working so hard and so physically every day that she started to lose her hair, and she was in this abusive relationship with a man that just didn't treat her right. One day this lady, who happens to be half white and half black, this is a whole issue about that, but she has this like magic potion or like a hair grower that she gives to this lady who's losing her hair, and it makes her hair grow back. And then from then she's inspired to create her own company and to sell her own hair grower, which is this like hair mask, I guess you can call it. And it's just really inspiring because it shows her journey from being someone who people look down on, and it's not only her journey to like self-recognition, but also like her journey of self-acceptance and realizing that we live in this like cruel world where if you look a certain way, if you don't have like straight hair, if you don't have light skin, then you're not treated as a human, which is, I find it really interesting that they have made a TV show about this because it's so current right now and people are really talking about this and speaking up about this in the media, and I find that inspiring because it's something I've always been so passionate about, to talk about like racism and beauty ideals, and this one really touches upon beauty ideals and how it's like woven into this systematic racism that is very current in the US.
Everybody wants a light, bright gal with thicker hair. You and me, we gotta work harder, be smarter, and get rich. From now on, I'm putting my face on all the ads and the tins.
Really give this one a watch. It's also a very beautiful show with like, the music and the costumes and the makeup from the 1910s. It's just such a beautiful show. I really, really recommend you watching that one. Moving away from historical drama, the third one I really want to suggest you guys watch is called Dead to Me, and it's like such a favorite of mine that I don't even know how many times I've watched it. There's only currently 2 seasons of it. Christina Applegate is one of the main cast, along with, I think she's called Lina Cardellini or Linda Cardellini, and it's the girl from Scooby-Doo, the nerdy girl with the glasses and like the bob cut, like the bangs. And I don't know, for some reason like those 2 actresses together are so freaking funny and hilarious to watch. It's like, it almost feels like they're best friends, from already before, which they might be, I'm not sure, but it just seems like they have such a good flow when they talk, and like when they make jokes, it's almost like they just came up with it then, and it just doesn't feel scripted at all.
Breakfast is almost ready. It's a frittata.
Henry thinks that the bird is his dead father. So that's where we're at right now.
Oh, maybe it is him.
Okay.
But basically this TV show features these 2 women who meet at this grief group because one of them, who is called Jen, it's like Jen and Judy. Jen, she's in this grief group because she's just lost her husband in a hit-and-run car accident. So she's struggling with that, and she finds this other girl there called Judy, and they're very different in the way that like Jen is more like cold-hearted, and she's kind of like, she doesn't like talking about emotions, she doesn't get mushy at all, like she's very like hardcore, like in the way that she talks, and she's very raw, and like she doesn't give a shit basically.
Ew, she's a roommate? It's fucking lame.
And then there's this other girl, Judy, who's very free-spirited, very like open and very like spiritual, and those 2 together, I think they bring out like the best of each other, like those 2 characters. And she also carries with her, like Judy carries with her like a really big secret that is going to be reveal itself in the end of episode 1 of season 1. So if you really want to know what it's about, then you have to watch it. But it's so amazing, and it's so funny because it's like feminists, but in like a really refreshing way, and the way that they like talk about these different issues, like they're like thinly veiled in there, I think there's this one scene where Jen is like, women are called crazy way too often, and it shouldn't happen because, we are not crazy. It's just a way of, like, it's just a way for men to diminish our thoughts or something like that. Like, and then there's also a different scene where Jen is like, like most of the time women are not overreacting, they're underreacting. this is my reaction, so I'm reacting appropriately. It's just really funny show, but it's also kind of dark comedy, so if you're someone who likes that type of comedy, in a way it's also such a feel-good for me because it reminds me of Desperate Housewives. It's almost like a modern version of Desperate Housewives with these two women. Okay, so of course I saved the best for last. I'm gonna take my hair out because it's kind of bothering me. Of course I saved the best for last, and it's Jane the Virgin. And this is not really a new TV show. It kind of came out 2016 or 15, I believe, which is now 5 years ago, which is crazy to me. But the cast, Gina Rodriguez, first of all, I love her, and there's a reason why she got the freaking Golden Globe Awards. But anyway, this TV show is set in Miami of modern day time, and it's basically about this girl called Jane. She grew up with these two strong women as well, so it's like her mom and her grandma. Her dad is unfortunately out of the picture, and there's like, it's not really clear where he is in the beginning, but he hasn't been a part of Jane's life. She's always been this like proper girl, like always a straight A student, always did what she was told and always followed by the rules, and she has this like plan for how her life is gonna pan out. She has her boyfriend and they're getting engaged after 2 years of dating, and she just has this whole idea of how her life is gonna turn out. And then one day she goes to the gynecologist and she is accidentally artificially inseminated.
I accidentally inseminated you 2 weeks ago. You what?
With another man's sperm. And the funny thing about this is that she actually made this promise to her grandmother to protect her flower and to save herself for marriage. So she's actually a virgin now who's now pregnant. So it's so hilarious. Like the storyline and the plot is just amazing, and I don't really know how they came up with all of these things, but obviously the writers are very talented because, you know, season after season, like you don't see things coming, and that's what keeps it interesting and exciting. And every time there's a new season, I was like, oh my god, it's coming out. It's also a TV show that I have watched several times. I think there's 5 seasons. It's an amazing TV show. It's very inclusive, super progressive, because first of all, the main cast is people of color, mostly people of color actually. I think 90% of the cast is Latinos or Latinx. And I think that is really refreshing because, you know, first of all, Miami is a very diverse place with a lot of Latin Americans, a lot of Cubans, a lot of Puerto Ricans, and I like that that is represented in this show. And it's not something that they talk about specifically. It's just like, you know, Spanish is thinly veiled in there. The different cultural clashes are in there, like, you know, it's because her grandma is from Venezuela. So she's technically also like an illegal immigrant, and it deals with like immigration.
¿Por qué retiraste el caso de la corte? ¿De lo que teníamos miedo?
Sí.
Bueno, el hospital está diciendo que van a hacer lo mismo a abuela.
And they also, even in some of the episodes, they do talk about like the politics and how Trump has basically like ruined it for them. But it's also really inclusive in the way that they don't only have women who are super thin or who are blonde. They actually show like Jane as this beautiful woman who is like curvy and she's brown, you know. And I love that because there's not a lot of shows that kind of show or portray a woman who's beautiful like that. They don't really talk about race. Like, it's only when, you know, it's something current, like for example they talk about immigration or something cultural, like they have like a special like tradition for Christmas or something, but other than that it's just like they're American just like everyone else. So yeah, like really watch this show. It's super funny. It's also like these strong female characters and strong male characters who are very like well balanced in their emotions, and you know, there's no like stigma over like homosexuals, and it's not like any sexual stigma. It's like it just deals with so many important and interesting topics that I think everyone would find interesting or at least funny to watch.
Wait, yeah, you two used to date, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, she's really pretty.
Not her. Him.
Oh. Cool. He's also very pretty.
The last thing about this TV show that I really love is that the narrator is the funniest guy ever, and it's almost like the narrating guy is like a character in the show because he is like bringing out his own opinions, and he's like, oh no, don't go there. That's not what I would have done. Like, you know, like he just pops in with like all these like thoughts and feelings. Also, Jane the Virgin is actually inspired by Juana la Virgen, which is a Venezuelan telenovela. If you don't know what a telenovela is, comment down below and I'll explain it to you. But yeah, those were all of my 5 favorite TV shows that I have been binging from Netflix. Some are old, some are new, and I think some of them are kind of underrated, honestly. Like, they're not talked about a lot, but I think they should be because they are such amazing shows and they're so funny and like they're so entertaining. Sorry, someone just came home. But yeah, I really hope you like these shows, and if you have watched any of them, please give a thumbs up down below, and yeah, leave a comment if you have your own 5 best Netflix series to binge this season. But yeah, guys, I hope to see you in my next video if you want to watch my next video, and until then, have a good day. Bye.